Act 1 The Myth of Prometheus. In classroom day, a classroom in Thailand, 2030, the teacher, a man in his 40s, stands in front of a screen displaying an image of Prometheus chained to a rock. Teacher said, Prometheus defied the gods to bring fire to humanity, a symbol of rebellion. But in myth, fire was not just a gift, it was dangerous, capable of destruction in the wrong hands. The students sit quietly listening. One of the students, Anon, a quiet and observant teenager, watched the screen, intrigued but not participating much. Teacher said, and for this defense, Prometheus was condemned, chained to a rock. His liver was eaten by an eagle each day, only to regenerate overnight. Eternal suffering. But what was the real punishment? The students glanced at each other. No one answers. Teacher replied, the real punishment was not the physical pain, but the helplessness, knowing that each day would bring the same agony. The screen now showed flames, flickering slowly. Teacher said, Prometheus symbolized both power and the cost of pushing limits. It's a cautionary tale for our world today. The bell rings, signaling the end of class. The teacher nodded at her student and said, think about it. Knowledge without control can destroy just as easily as it can save. The students begin to leave, including Anon, who is lost in thought. As Anon exits the classroom, a strange sound catches his attention. At school grounds day, Anon walked through the school grounds. The sound grew clearer, a high-pitched mewing like a cat in distress.
Is that a cat?
He followed the sound toward a small soil next to the school. The narrow alley is dark. Anon hesitates, but the sound is unmistakable now. He steps cautiously into the alley, looking around. Suddenly, he sees a figure huddled near the trash bins. The figure is a person with Kritusha syndrome. Their cry sharp and unnatural like a distorted meow. Anon freezes in place, startled and unsure of what to do.
What is that?
The person looked up, their expression blank but distressed, and continued to make the cat-like sound. Anon backed up slowly, overwhelmed by fear and confusion. Suddenly, the sound of footsteps is heard. Two figures in long coats appear at the far end of the alley. They walk quickly toward the person, casting long shadows. Anon, hiding behind a corner, watched in silent horror as they approach that person, silently lift them and take them into the dark van waiting nearby. The van door closed with a sharp click and it drives away, leaving Anon alone in the alley, shaken. At the government office at night, the office is sleek and minimalist. Prometheus, or Eve, a composed 26-year-old with a sharp, calculating gaze, sits alone at a long glass table. On her left shoulder, a white jumbo rat called Eagles peers out from her coat pocket, occasionally twisting its whisker. Prometheus tapped her left finger thoughtfully on the table. Her right arm, missing below the elbow, rests naturally by her side, a contrast to her otherwise polished demeanor. A high-ranking officer enters, taking a seat across from her.
Thank you for coming in such a short notice, Prometheus.
The more time we waste, the harder they are to find. Genetics alteration, right? Where should I start?
People showing up with rare conditions, like Kritusha syndrome, the kind that could only be engineered.
Prometheus opened the files, her eyes scanning the contents, her expression tightening.
Systematic genetic tampering? Intentional and targeted. Do we know who's being targeted?
We suspect it's specific. We believe the victims might have connection, possibly, from school years.
Prometheus' expression flickers, as if she's trying to recall something just out of reach. She clenched her left fist slightly, an unconscious habit.
School connections.
Ego shift in her pocket, nuzzling her shoulder, as if sensing her unease. Prometheus absently stroked his fur, guarding herself.
We need you to find out how deep this goes, and if it's personal.
If there's trade, I'll pull it. I just need everything. Locations, timeline, any patterns.
Of course, but treat it carefully. This group is elusive.
Trust me, you're not more elusive than I am.
Her apartment is dimly lit, lined with shelves of crime novels and files. Prometheus sits at her desk, flipping through an old yearbook with faded pages. She hesitates over a photo from her high school, her right fingers gently tracing faces as if searching for a memory. Ego crawls onto her shoulder, watching her quietly.
Why can't I remember? And why did they take my arm?
She closed the book, her face unreadable but resolved. In her journal labeled Prometheus, she jotted down a few notes, her mind already starting to untangle the mystery. Act 2. Uncovering the Past. In government office at night, Prometheus sits in a dim room reviewing case files on a screen. Ego, her white jumbo rests comfortably in her coat pocket. She swipes through the cases, her face tense and engrossed. She paused on James' profile, his details filling the screen. A photo shows him now, vacant and disturbed. In the corner, an old-school photo shows James as a young boy, with a hint of arrogance in his expression. In classroom flashback day, a classroom scene from years ago, a group of students surround a boy with Down syndrome, teasing and bullying him. James is clearly a leader in the bullying, laughing and urging others on. In the background, June, the class leader, watched from a distance, pretending not to notice. And teacher said, Prometheus gave fire to humanity, but that fire can destroy if left uncontrolled. This message hauntingly echoing from Act 1. In government office at night, Prometheus stared at the screen, recognizing James' role in the past bullying incident. A faint flicker of memory crossed her face, something she can't quite recall.
James, one of the bullies, and now?
Ego shifted slightly in her pocket, as if sensing her unease, and she stroked his fur absently. In Diamond Grading Lab at night, Prometheus arrived at an upscale high-security lab. Inside, officials hover around June, a woman in her early 30s who is slumped in a chair, hands shooting her eyes. June's Thailand top diamond graders is in visible pain, her eyes even sensitive to the slightest light. Prometheus crouched beside her, her voice calm and empathetic.
June, I know you're in pain. You know, the doctor said you have retinoblastoma now, but can you tell me about what happened? They came for me. They turned me like this.
Prometheus' gaze hardened slightly.
Do you remember what they looked like? They wore white robes, but their faces were hidden. I could feel their hatred.
Prometheus pondered her words, a frown deepening as she realized the cult purpose. These were not random acts, they were a punishment for something connected to the past.
They hold themselves as clippers, and they believe they're delivering justice. I was the class leader. I just looked away.
Prometheus' gaze narrowed, understanding the cult's twisted sense of retribution. June's condition wasn't a coincidence, it was a dark form of justice. In Prometheus' apartment at night. Back at her apartment, Prometheus pored over her journal, labeled Prometheus. Ego nuzzled her shoulder, providing silent company. She flipped through an old yearbook, pausing on a faded image of a classroom scene. In the background, the Down syndrome students stand alone, isolated.
This all goes back to that classroom.
Her brow furrows as she tried to remember, faint glimpse surfacing that quickly fading. She closed the yearbook, her hand brushing over the name Exoacquisition, scrawled in her journal.
I'll find you, and I will end this.
Act 3. Unreached Wrath. In government office, in case review room, at night, Prometheus sits in a dimly lit case review room, scrutinizing a file on her screen. She halts on an image of Mark, a tall, athletic figure in his prime, now with an expression of profound suffering. His medical notes describe an agonizing condition, pseudohypoaldosteronism type 1, a rare disorder preventing thought balance. She scribbled through images of his last known location, an airy shot of a small raft adrift in the ocean.
Stranded with no way to retain salt. This wasn't just punishment. This was a death sentence.
Ego nestled in her shoulder pocket, senses her attention and squeaked softly. Flashback at school gym day. A rowdy gymnasium years ago, Mark, the star player, commanded attention, laughing as he taunted the Down syndrome student. His words cut sharp, and with every sneer, more students joined in, spurred on by his charisma and manipulative charm. June, the class leader, stands off to the side, looking uncomfortable but silent. Other students hesitate, casting uncertain glances, but Mark's influence went out as he continued to egg them on. In government office at night, back in the present, Prometheus closed her eye, striking with hazy image that slipped just out of reach. A gym faint, laughter, her own anger, her missing memories swirled just out of her grasp. She clenched her fist.
It all started there, didn't it?
X, the laugh, open at night. Aaron laughed on a vast dark sea. Max lay on his back, body trembling and weak, his skin ashen and his lips cracked. He struggled to sip from a container of salt water, knowing that it is his only source of sodium, but that is also killing him faster.
Help! Someone!
Desperately, the sound of waves swallowing his plea. At the government lab at night, Prometheus entered the lab with a well retrieved in the last scene. She set it down next to the file on Mark's.
They're getting more brutal, Prometheus. Whoever this Exoacquisition call is, they're escalating. If this keep going on.
It will keep going. They're only getting started. Each target is deliberate.
She scanned the list of victims, her eyes pausing on the two names marked as pending, Poppy and Keen.
Poppy and Keen? They were the worst, weren't they?
Who are they?
Poppy was Mark's old girlfriend, now an actress, pregnant with her first child. She was ruthless, using her charm to turn others against the weak. But Keen, he is more dangerous, CFO of a biotech firm that's developed cutting-edge DNA modification tech. The very technologies that enabling us clippers to carry out these twisted distributions.
They're going after the creator of the weapon itself.
Prometheus nodded, her expression grave.
If they reach Keen, Ascubas could access every genetic tool they need to make this a global operation.
No need to mention further. She knows but denies to imagine the worst possible outcome, at least to keep her less dreadful. In Prometheus' apartment at night, back at her apartment, Prometheus sits in the quiet, flipping through old photos and yearbooks. She paused on a page showing Mark, Poppy, and Keen together. The memories creep closer, fragments slipping through her mental defenses, a sense of betrayal, fear, and the echo of taunting laughter. Echo shifted in her shoulder pocket, and she stroked him gently.
I don't remember, but somehow I know this was our fault.
She closed the yearbook, clenched her fist with a determination gleaming in her eye.
Act 4. A Dark Legacy. In the private hospital room at night, Poppy lies in bed, her hand protectively resting on her swollen abdomen. Her face distorted with a mixture of hope and anxiety as she glanced at an ultrasound image on the screen. Her doctor discusses the health of her unborn child with cautious optimism. This baby represents her and Keen's hard-won hope after years of difficulties conceiving. In abandoned warehouse night, Prometheus creeps through the shadowy interior of an abandoned warehouse, her heart pounding as she follows the faint sound of voices. Ego peers out from her shoulder pocket, sensing the tension. Ahead, she spots a small gathering of figures, members of the cult of Asclepius. They stand in a circle around Poppy, who is very conscious and strapped to a chair. As Prometheus inches closer, she catches sight on the cult leaders, Brian, a man with a steely gaze but with a haunted look in his eye. He steps forward, addressing the group with quiet conviction.
This child will bear the consequences of her parents' cruelty. Edward syndrome, a disease that will seize her of a future, just as they seized my brother of his dignity.
Flashback, school courtyard day. Years ago, the Down syndrome student, Brian's brother, sits alone, struggling to concentrate, while Mark's puppy and others laugh and taunt him from a distance. His face reflects growing confusion and hurt, and he tries to cover his ears. His distress grows as their laughter intensifies, echoing in the empty courtyard. In abandoned warehouse night. Back in the present, Prometheus emerges from the shadows, her voice cold but steady. It's not the child's fault, Brian. You want revenge, but this crosses every line. Brian turns to face her, his expression a mixture of bitterness and pain.
My brother, he lost his health, his spirit, because of them. Those bullies cost him his life as he knew it. Do you think they deserve peace? This is justice.
Prometheus approaches, her eyes locked on him. And how is hurting an innocent child justice?
They are guilty by inheritance. Their legacy are stained by cruelty. The child will inherit the sins of the parents.
In private hospital room, a moment later. The atmosphere is tense as Prometheus tries to save Poppy, but she's too late. Brian's followers have already completed the genetic modification procedure, sealing the baby's fate with Edward's syndrome. This devastating diagnosis means the child will face severe developmental delays and physical abnormalities, with cerebral unlikely beyond the first few years. As Prometheus turns to Poppy, hoping to offer comfort, she notices the look of realization in Poppy's eyes as she comprehends the tragedy unfolding within her. In Keen and Poppy's home, living room, night. Keen standing in his dimly lit living room, watching as the news of the recent cult attacks blares from the television. Fear tightens his expression as he glances towards the hospital, contemplating his own safety. His cowardice overtakes him. He picks up his phone and texts Poppy, but after a moment he closes the phone, avoiding her and the hospital altogether, fleeing instead to a hidden location. In CEO's office morning. Mr. Jerome, Kane's father and CEO of the DNA modification company, meets with Prometheus. She recounts the cult's actions and the threats against his family, detailing the latest tragedy that befell Poppy and her unborn child. They're going to keep going, Mr. Jerome. Brian won't stop until everyone involved in his brother's suffering has paid. Keen may be the next. If we work together, maybe we can convince Brian to stand down. Jerome's face tightens with resolve.
I'll do whatever it takes. Arrange a meeting. If it's my family's fault, then I'll be the one who make amends.
In deserted building, night. Prometheus and Jerome arrive at an abandoned building where Brian has agreed to meet. The room is dark and cult members line the wall, watching them intently. Brian steps forward, seemingly open to negotiation as he and Jerome exchange tense words. For a moment, it seems that reconciliation might be possible, but Prometheus catches the glint of something ominous in Brian's eye. Before she can react, several cult members seize Jerome, holding him tight. What are you doing?
This is no negotiation, Prometheus. Charon's part of the debt too, and now he's our leverage.
Brian's eyes blaze with conviction as his followers disdain Jerome, preparing to use him as a bait to draw out Keen. Brian, listen. He came here to make peace. This isn't justice, it's revenge. Brian only shakes his head, the weight of years of hurt and loss heavy in his gaze.
No problem, Prometheus. Peace is for the innocent, and none of them are innocent.
As Prometheus watches helpless, the cult tightens its hold on Jerome, drawing him into the dark depths of the building. Act 5. The Reconing. In Prometheus' apartment, night. Prometheus sits alone in the dim light, her phone buzzing in her hand. She answers it, hearing Brian's cold, measured voice on the other end.
You must be wondering why this all started with you, Prometheus. Or should I call you Eves?
Prometheus tenses, clutching her right shoulder where her coat pocket houses her silent companion, Ego. What are you talking about, Brian? Why was I the first?
Because you were the one to betray my brother first. You took the part in the cruelty. You, Eves, hurt him more deeply than anyone other could ever do.
Prometheus' breath catches us flashes of memories, a smile, laughter, then an accident, resurface clouded by confusion.
Your right hand. You lost it because of him. He accidentally injured you, didn't he? And yet you turned against him, belittling him, laughing at him with those classmates. You see, Eve, I never forgot.
That's not. I don't remember any of this.
Of course not. We took your memory when we modified you, erased that moment and planned something new. And more than that, we gave you a Huntington disease. That's your punishment for what you did.
You did this to me?
We took your memory and left you with a death sentence. You're one of us now, Prometheus. Now, to save yourself, you're going to help us lure Keen out.
Prometheus grips the phone, feeling both betrayal and fears as Brian continues.
Find Keen, lead him to us, and maybe, just maybe, you will have enough time to look for a kill.
At remote meeting location, night. Prometheus stands in the secluded, dimly lit area waiting. Moments later, Keen steps out of a black SUV, his face a mask of false calm as he approaches her.
You want to see me, Eve? What is this about?
It's not about me, Keen. It's about what you did. The way you tormented that boy, Brian's brother.
Oh, that. Just some harmless fun, Eves. He didn't even know what was happening most of the time.
Prometheus clenches her fist, anger bubbling as she fights to remain composed. Harmless fun? You publicly humiliated him, trod him down, even after he begged you to stop. You made sure everyone joined in, pressured them to take a part in your twisted games. He wasn't just a target. He was your personal victim, suffering in ways you never understand. Keen shrugs, a smug smile creeping onto his face.
And so what? What done is done. People move on, Eves.
A group of cult members step out from the shadows surrounding Keen. Realizing the trap, Keen stumbles, pleading desperately.
Wait, I'll do anything. Money, power, whatever you want, just name it.
Brian steps forward, looking down on Keen with contempt.
What we want is just suffering. Something your wealth and your power can't even shield you from. A reminder of what you made my brother endure. No, wait!
In a sudden, desperate move, Keen throws a hidden knife and plugs into Brian's side. Brian gasps, staggering backward as Keen makes a break for it, but he doesn't get far. The cult member sees him, pinning him down as Brian clutches his phone, struggling to stand.
Finish the punishment.
Brian collapses, blood pooling around him as the cult members take Keen to the center of the space. Later, in the cult headquarters, Prometheus watches from a distance now as the cult enacts Keen's final punishment.
Let his mind become a mirror, his skin a constant wound.
Keen's eyes widen in horror as he begins to feel the effects of mirror touch synesthesia and hemophilia. The sensation of every touch and scratch amplifying his own pain, and the constant risk of uncontrollable bleeding. Keen screams, unable to escape from the prison of his own skin, the punishment worse than any he could ever imagine. Days later, at the hospital, Prometheus watches the news in silence as images flash across the screen. The escapist cult disbanded, Brian dead, and Keen in critical condition under government custody, struggling with the unbearable sensations he inflicted on others. A reporter's voice narrates. Following these horrific events, the surviving victims faced complex recoveries. June, the diamond grader, had lost much of her vision. Marks. The basketball star remains in critical condition due to salt imbalance issue. Poppy mourns to the loss of her unborn child, and James struggles with his mental health in the wake of his attack. Prometheus closes her eyes, the weight of her own diagnosis, Huntington's disease, pressing down. In Prometheus' lab, night. Prometheus stands in her lab, staring at her reflection. Her hand shakes slightly, a symptom she knows will only get worse. I fight care. Somehow, I have to. She reaches into her coat pocket, feeling the comforting weight of ego who peeks out twisting its nose. Maybe this is my punishment, but I won't go down without a fight. As she returns to her work, her face determined, the screen fades to black. The saddest thing about betrayal is that it never comes from your enemies.